So Peter and Jude are reading Jewish books, essentially commentary on the Old Testament, on this episode of Genesis 6, 1 through 4, and they bring some of that material into their own writings in the New Testament. They providentially read material that actually preserved the original context for Genesis 6, 1 through 4, because Genesis 6, 1 through 4 is there for a reason. It's not that, again, man, I'm 4 verses short, I got a verse count here, what should I stick in here? Let's give them a really weird thing, I'll play with their minds a little bit. No, there's a point to why the verses are there, but the context is lost on us. The Old Testament writer assumes his readers will pick up what he's laying down, and some of them did because they write about it later, and Peter and Jude use those works and they actually recover the original context. Since the 19th century, we've known that Mesopotamian flood stories are very similar to the Bible's flood stories. If you went to college, I can guarantee if you took a religion class, you heard this, because people love to use this as a wedge between you and your idea that the Bible's different than other literature. Okay, this is sort of a favorite trajectory. Similarities with other documents. This has been well known since the 19th century. The biblical story records an event, but it also does theology. The flood story isn't designed just to tell you there was a flood. The flood story is actually making a theological point, and that's actually what's happening in the first 4, really the first 5 verses of the account. The writer is shooting at something, and what he's shooting at is Mesopotamian religion. He's shooting at some other gods. But again, that's a context that lost to us. It wasn't lost to Peter and Jude or the writers of that other literature. So again, books like Enoch preserve this. To get us into this subject, I like to do it this way. We just read Genesis 6, 1 through 4, this weird sons of God stuff that Peter and Jude take at face value. It's just weird, all right? And if it's weird, it must be important, and it is. But look at verse 5. What does this have to do with the first 4 verses? The Lord saw that the wickedness of man... Wait a minute, I thought the sons of God were the bad guys. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Well, how do you go from the sons of God violating the boundary between heaven and earth? How do you go from a supernatural rebellion to all the people being wicked all the time? What's going on here? How do you go from one to the other? If you knew the backstory, you wouldn't ask the question. So we're going to go into the backstory.